Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top story tonight on Gravitas comes from the United States. As new Islamist revenge attacks terrorize America, the year 2025 has started on a horrific note, to say the least. The US has already seen 3 major attacks. The year has only started. We decode all of this for you in just a bit. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. As China rehearses the siege of Taiwan, it is building up its military capabilities. We tell you what's brewing. We also tell you all about the weapons that have shaped the West Asia conflict and the tensions. Saudi Arabia is negotiating to acquire 100 CAN fighter jets from Turkey. We get you the complete story and decode the implications. Is it possible to reverse time? Can the concept of negative time exist? What is it really? We tell you what a study says. All this and more coming up. Our top story tonight on Gravitas is about the new Islamist Afghan revenge attacks terrorizing America. We are just 2 days into the new year, and the US has already seen 3 major attacks, killing at least 16 and injuring more than 50 people. In the first attack, a pickup truck rammed into New Year's revelers in New Orleans, reportedly carried out by an ISIS-inspired assailant. Hours later, a Tesla Cybertruck exploded near the Trump Tower in Las Vegas. In the third attack, outside a New York nightclub, NYPD said 3 to 4 males walked towards the nightclub and opened fire over 30 times in the direction of a group standing in line outside the event. At least 15 people were injured in this incident. And nearly 12 hours later, details about the incident still remain scarce, but multiple details, such as the accused in the New Orleans and Las Vegas attacks using a common vehicle renting agency, the ISIS flag being found inside the vehicle in the New Orleans incident, and statements by US President Joe Biden, President-elect Donald Trump, Elon Musk, FBI, they've all raised speculation. The statements have triggered speculation and reportedly fueled growing unease across America, leading to many asking whether these incidents are mere coincidences or part of a larger coordinated effort. An attack by a terror group like the ISIS? Because ideology, remember, does not have any frontiers. But before we go any further at this point, let's just talk about how and why the ISIS is being linked to these attacks. In the New Orleans attack, a 42-year-old man identified as Shamsuddin Bahar Jabbar, a US Army veteran from Texas, had an Islamic State flag in his truck as per the FBI.
The subject has been identified as 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, a U.S.-born citizen from Texas. He was driving a Ford pickup truck, which appears to be rented, and we are working to confirm how the subject came in possession of this vehicle. An ISIS flag was located on the trailer hitch of the vehicle, and the FBI is working to determine the subject's potential associations and affiliations with terrorist organizations. Weapons and potential improvised explosive devices, IEDs, were located in the subject's vehicle. Other potential IEDs were also located in the French Quarter.
In fact, US President Joe Biden also said that the attacker was inspired by ISIS, stating that the attacker had posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by the Islamic State.
The FBI also reported to me that mere hours before the attack, he posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill. The ISIS flag was found in his vehicle, which he rented to conduct this attack.
U.S. law enforcement officials are reportedly trying to determine the suspect's potential associations and affiliations with ISIS. Now, in the second incident, the explosion involving a Tesla Cybertruck outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas has been described as an act of terrorism by Elon Musk on X. Musk further said, and shed light, in fact, on how vehicles from the same renting agency were used for the New Orleans and Las Vegas attacks. The FBI is reportedly exploring whether the Las Vegas explosion was a terror attack. Meanwhile, the NYPD has ruled out that the New York firing incident was a terror attack. But many Americans are reportedly not agreeing to this, stating that after the New Orleans incident, the FBI initially issued a statement saying that it was not a terror attack, only to backtrack a few hours later, with Musk calling out the FBI on this on X as speculation grows about whether all three incidents are interlinked and are part of a larger plot by a terror group. ISIS has so far claimed responsibility for the New Orleans incident, but at its peak from 2014 to 2017, the ISIS spread across over a wide area of Syria and Iraq, primarily based in the Syrian city of Raqqa and the Iraqi city of Mosul, from where it ruled like a centralized government, repeatedly fighting and defeating armies from both the countries while simultaneously executing attacks in dozens of cities around the world. Its then leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, was killed in 2019 by the US Special Forces in northwestern Syria, and that reportedly triggered the group's fall, along with sustained military campaign by the US-led coalitions in Syria and Iraq. And in the aftermath, the ISIS has reportedly switched tactics. Its fighters are scattered in sleeper cells, and its leadership is undercover, while its overall size is hard to quantify. Many of its fighters who fled Iraq and Syria have joined the group's Khorasan branch, also known as ISIS-K in Afghanistan, and is reportedly active along Iran's borders with Afghanistan and Pakistan. Sanaullah Ghaffari, the 29-year-old leader of the Afghan branch of ISIS, has reportedly transformed the group and made it capable of conducting operations far from its bases in Afghanistan, and ISIS has continued to launch terror attacks around the world. On Wednesday, ISIS claimed responsibility for an attack on a military base in Somalia that it says killed more than 20 military personnel. In a statement, ISIS said the attack was conducted by 12 militants and 2 booby-trapped vehicles. The group had also carried out a terror attack on a Russian concert hall in March 2024, killing at least 143 people, and was behind 2 explosions that killed nearly 100 people in the Iranian city of Kerman in January. Even lone wolves are reportedly inspired by the group. In August last year, a 19-year-old Austrian suspected of masterminding a planned attack on a Taylor Swift concert in Vienna had claimed allegiance to the ISIS. Recently, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and the Pentagon warned that ISIS will try to re-establish its presence in Syria following the ouster of the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad last month. In fact, as speculation only grows within America of new Islamist revenge attacks terrorizing them, the ISIS role in these attacks, the scale of more such attacks, questions that may be answered in the coming days or weeks. Our next story is about China. It is building up its military capabilities as it rehearses the siege of Taiwan. Simultaneously, according to a new report, military analysts saying that the Chinese Navy is trying to create a blockade on Japanese islands. A blockade to, quote-unquote, take Taiwan without a fight. What's really sparked this concern? Recent drill by China sparked speculation. It's not without merit, though. First, just have a look at this map on your screen. You see Taiwan, you see China, and you see Okinawa, Japan's main island. The distance between Okinawa's most westerly islands and Taiwan must be approximately a few hundred kilometers. That's where the Chinese are reportedly trying to create a sort of blockade. Analysts believe that a fleet of Chinese Navy ships have conducted an exercise to impose this naval blockade between Okinawa and the most westerly island of its prefecture. What was the aim? To isolate them and take control of Taiwan. Quoting multiple Japanese government sources, the Yomiuri newspaper reported on Wednesday that 6 Chinese ships, including a Jiangkai Class 1 frigate, as well as 3 Coast Guard vessels, set sail around the southern tip of Taiwan. The Chinese ships then passed the Pacific through the Miyako Strait and into the East China Sea on December 22nd. The joint operation between the Navy and the armed Coast Guard vessels was the first in the 250-kilometer strait that separates Okinawa Island and Miyako, as well as an archipelago of smaller islands. It ends with Yonaguni, which is a little over 100 kilometers to the east of Taiwan. Now, according to Japanese government analysts, the Chinese ships' movements were an unusual move that suggests a maritime blockade. And what's more, the exercises also coincided with the continued presence of Chinese Coast Guard ships in waters surrounding islands in the East China Sea. Of course, Beijing claims and refers to them as the Diaoyu archipelago. The uninhabited territories are part of Okinawa Prefecture and are administered by Japan, which knows them as the Senkakus. Analysts believe that China's moves could be part of China's broader strategy to take Taiwan without a fight. They believe that China is using its strategic as well as asymmetric advantages in these waters. The challenge for Japan, though, is how it can counter China. Remember, Beijing sees Taiwan as part of China. They see the island as national territory, waiting to be reunited by force if necessary. The US opposes any attempt to take the self-governed island by force and has committed to supplying the island with weapons to defend itself. Now comes the question of how would a blockade on Japanese islands help it in its invasion of Taiwan? Here's what analysts are saying. Japan is limited to using its own Coast Guard units in order to deter its Chinese counterparts in the waters of southwest Japan. Why is that, you ask? It's because China would interpret the deployment of any maritime self-defense force units as an escalation, and that in turn would provide China with an excuse to deploy its own navy. And let's not forget, China's naval strength is significantly larger and more potent than Japan's maritime forces. And so a blockade in the Miyako Strait would make a Japanese response extremely complicated. And there are other possibilities for China blockading Japanese islands. For one, it would be to make it harder for the Japanese forces and its allies to come to the aid of Taiwan in the event of an emergency situation. Number two, by isolating the islands, China could essentially hold their residents hostage to deter any resistance from Japan. Number three, China wants to invade and occupy these islands. After all, some within China claiming that Japan's Okinawa should be controlled by China. Just to clarify here, China has not created a blockade on Japanese islands, at least so far. These are just exercises at the moment. But you see, these provocative actions by China do add to Japan's anxieties. Remember, China also has held joint naval patrols with Russian units. Plus, Chinese survey ships continue to map the ocean floor around Okinawa. There have also been frequent intrusions by Chinese ships into Japanese waters around the Senkakus. All this as China continues to flex its military might. Its weapons and military equipment development has hit exponential levels. In fact, latest reports suggesting that China is currently conducting the largest military buildup seen since that of Nazi Germany during the 1930s. All of these is to give America's defense establishment sleepless nights. And the South China Sea dispute between the Philippines and China continues to simmer meanwhile. A suspected Chinese submarine drone was found in Philippine waters. The Philippines claiming the drone was being used for reconnaissance. The recovered drone is just the latest flashpoint in a region teetering on the edge of conflict. The incident is the latest in Beijing's escalating assertiveness and Manila's determined pushback to safeguard its maritime sovereignty. In signs of growing aggression, China's Coast Guard and maritime militia have regularly intruded into the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, targeting vessels with near-violent encounters. Tensions peaked last June when Chinese Coast Guard ships clashed with Philippine military vessels near Second Thomas Shoal. Beijing accused the Philippine vessels of illegal trespass, while Manila claimed the shoal lies squarely within its EEZ. The confrontation left Philippine ships damaged and supplies depleted, highlighting the overwhelming mismatch between the maritime capabilities of the two sides. Sabina Shoal, for those uninitiated, is a disputed low-tide elevation atoll in the northeast of the Spratly Islands, South China Sea. It is claimed by China, the Philippines, Taiwan and Vietnam. In fact, the Philippine government has accused China of behaving like Vikings as Beijing continues massing vessels near contested reefs like Sabina and Second Thomas Shoals. These clashes are straining Manila's resources, stretching the delicate balance between defending its western waters and addressing piracy and smuggling across its archipelago of over 7,000 islands. Since taking office in 2022, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has pivoted the Philippines' focus from internal security to external defense. In fact, Manila is employing a multi-pronged approach, boosting naval infrastructure, enacting maritime laws, and increasing diplomatic efforts to rally international support. Yet the latest drone recovery raises urgent questions. How far is China willing to push really, and how long can the Philippines hold its ground? With Beijing's actions becoming more provocative, clearly in the new year, the South China Sea remains a volatile flashpoint with global implications. Shifting focus now to West Asia, we've been talking about the people, the events shaping the conflict in the region and the tensions. Let's just talk about the weapons that have shaped the conflict. Tonight, we are getting you the details and breaking it all down for you one by one. The first one is Yassin RPG, the Israeli ground invasion of Gaza that kicked off several weeks into the conflict with Hamas in October 2023, ran into serious difficulties stemming from the Hamas's use of tunnels, guerrilla warfare, as well as a combination of small arms and man-portable rockets. The latter includes the Yassin. It is a Soviet RPG-2, RPG-7 derived, locally produced anti-tank rocket-propelled grenade, or RPG. It was introduced in the year 2004 for use by the Al-Qassam brigades, effective to a range of up to 300 meters. These deadly weapons have proven to be a threat to everything from ground troops to armor up to 21 centimeters thick at closer ranges, including tanks. Next comes the Popoi missile. While depending extensively on America-made munitions like the Mark 84 2,000-pound bomb to level large parts of the Gaza Strip, Israel has also used its own airdropped weapons like the 3,000-pound Popoi missile. Israel has in fact used it most recently against Yemen's Houthis. Designed by Rafael in the mid-1980s, the Popoi has a 78-kilometer range that's beyond that of most air defense systems. It is equipped with a 340 kg blast frag or 360 kg penetration warhead. It features inertial, infrared or TV guidance amid the escalation of fighting with the Houthis and Israeli leaders' threats to assassinate the militia's leadership. The Popoi and missiles like it, including the Rampage Sky Sniper and Icebreaker, have become the IDF's key tools in aerial aggression against the Houthis. Number 3, Palestine II missile. Considered the most important weapon in the Houthi arsenal for attacks on Israel, the Palestine II is a two-stage solid fuel missile. It has a range of 2,150 kilometers. It can carry 500 kg warhead. It has a top speed up to Mach 16 and reports saying it has the ability to maneuver during flight. Palestine II launches have proven the Houthis' ability to penetrate Israel's much touted multi-layered, multi-billion-dollar air defense network. In fact, the effectiveness of Palestine II strikes in mid-December may also help to explain the dramatic ramping up of Israeli and US-UK bombings inside Yemen in recent weeks. Number 4 is Khyber Shakan missile. You see, 2024 also saw the first ever direct, large-scale exchange of fire between Iran and Israel. The Islamic Republic launched 2 waves of missile attacks against Tel Aviv in April and then again October. Dozens of those missiles landed on target at military bases and intelligence sites without being intercepted. And among these missiles was the Khyber Shakan, which literally means fortress buster. It is a 4.5-ton, 10.5-meter-long solid fuel ballistic missile. The Khyber Shakan has a range of 1,450 kilometers. It can carry a 500 kg warhead, but Iran has not just used this against Israel. Besides Israel, Iran has recently used this missile for strikes on terrorists in Pakistan as well as Syria. Lastly, at number 5, we have the Hoopoe drone. Through 2024, Hezbollah repeatedly deployed this drone, also known as Hurhur, reconnaissance drones, over northern Israel. It released high-resolution footage of top-secret Israeli bases. Information online regarding the large airplane-style turboprop-powered drones' characteristics varying wildly. What is known for certain, though, is that the Hoopoe has demonstrated the vulnerabilities in Israel's air defenses to slow, low-flying drones. The intelligence gathered by these drones helped Hezbollah direct attacks at Israel. These 5 weapons have shaped the conflict in West Asia. The war has showcased just how fierce these weapons are, but it's no comparison to the actual human toll that we have seen on the ground. These weapons and more have destroyed West Asia and several parts of it, The destruction sees no end. What lies ahead for the region this year? Only time will tell. On to Saudi Arabia now. It is reportedly negotiating to acquire 100 Can fighter jets from Turkey. This potential deal could signal a major shift for Saudi Arabia's military dynamics. Senior leaders from both countries reportedly met in Istanbul last week. Their discussions focused on buying the Can fighter jets reportedly and explored joint production, technology transfer, and other collaborative opportunities reportedly. Saudi Arabia's current fleet includes F-15s, Typhoons and Tornadoes reportedly, but it lacks a fifth-generation fighter jet. This gap has driven Riyadh to seek alternatives in a way beyond its traditional ally, the United States. For over a decade now, Saudi Arabia has tried to secure F-35 jets from the US, but Washington has reportedly denied these requests, and Riyadh is broadening its options. Alongside Turkey's Can, Saudi leaders are reportedly considering France's Rafale and China's J-31. So what really makes Can fighter jets so appealing, you ask? Developed by the Turkish aerospace industries, this fifth-generation twin-engine stealth fighter has cutting-edge technology. As per reports, it excels in air superiority and multi-role operations. It measures 21 meters long with a wingspan of 14 meters and a height of 6 meters and is capable of reaching speeds up to Mach 1.8. It can operate at altitudes up to 55,000 feet. Its combat range extending to roughly 1,100 kilometers with a payload capacity exceeding 6,000 kilograms. Advanced systems further enhancing its capabilities. Its radar reportedly can detect targets over 100 kilometers away. Reportedly, Can completed its first flight in February 2024, and as such, it's a relatively new entrant in global military aviation. The potential purchase aligning with Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 strategy, as per reports. Riyadh aims to reduce dependency on traditional defense suppliers while bolstering its technological edge. If finalized, this deal could redefine alliances and perhaps reshape military power balances in West Asia and the world. Ukraine is under relentless Russian attacks. Kiev hopes for peace as promised by Donald Trump, but the question is, what price? Moscow is clear it will continue its goal of capturing the entire Donbas region while asserting it will not agree to Ukraine joining NATO or allowing foreign troops on Ukrainian soil. Is peace a tangible goal or just an illusion for Ukraine? Take a look at this report.
On the battlefield, the Russian forces inch forward relentlessly. Fields, towns and villages are all devastated. In the latest offensive, guided bombs are targeting southern Zaporizhia. Russians have increased the ferocity of aerial attacks, striking Ukrainian cities with unrelenting precision using drones and missiles. In the Donetsk region, Russian troops are pressing hard. Not just armored vehicles, Russians are also using bikes to move deeper into the countryside. The shelling has been constant, and Ukrainian forces are facing mounting pressure. Fear grows of a renewed offensive on the Zaporizhia's regional capital. As winter deepens, the suffering Russian attacks on energy infrastructure leave thousands without heat. Yet there is hope that the new year will bring an end to the war.
I think something has to change for the better in Ukraine because it's the new year and everyone wants everything to change for the better and the war to end, which is the most important thing.
I have nothing to say about Trump at all because I think all that we must do should be done ourselves, without Trump and anyone else.
Russian citizens also hope the fighting will end, allowing soldiers to return home from the trenches.
My greatest wish for all Russians is for the war to end, for peace to prevail in our country, for everyone to be happy and to love each other.
Of course, we would like the country to finally end SVO. We're very worried about the guys. We want them to come home soon. We're all worried about them.
The hard reality is that the war is showing no clear end. Trump's pledge to stop it within 24 hours stirs skepticism. NATO allies fear the compromises he might demand of Kyiv, while Zelensky's push for NATO membership and strategic guarantees get lukewarm support. For Kyiv, there are vital lifelines. For its allies, they are not yet priorities. As 2025 begins, Ukraine faces harsh realities. Fighting rages, hope dwindles, and the specter of an uneasy peace looms. At what cost will this war end, and who will pay the price? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Time now for Gravitas recall. 40 years ago, the Bhopal gas tragedy struck. The leak that killed over 5,000 people and poisoned more than 500,000 others in the Indian city of Bhopal. 40 years later, let's tell you what happened on Thursday. An Indian court, in a crucial development, at the US Environmental Protection Agency. India has achieved a significant milestone, the country's coffee exports hitting a new record high exceeding $1 billion for the first time. Coffee exports reached $1,146.9 million between April and November 2024, up 29% from the previous year. This is according to the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. The sudden spike in exports value is due to the surge in Robusta coffee prices. The need to stock up in anticipation of the new deforestation law imposed by the European Union also led to the export surge. And this regulation will increase the cost of coffee and other agricultural exports to the EU. India's coffee exports increased over 12% to $1.28 billion for the full year in 2023 to 24. In 2022 to 23, the country's coffee exports were valued at $1.14 billion. The surge in exports is driven by higher demand for Robusta coffee in global markets. Among the most important destinations for Indian coffee exports being Turkey, the UAE, Italy, Russia. India eyeing to fill the gap amid global production challenges, with the cost of Arabica surging to the highest level since 1977. The primary driver here is Brazil's record-breaking drought, which has significantly impacted its coffee crop, the world's largest. Vietnam, the leading producer of the cheaper Robusta bean, also faced weather-related challenges. A lack of rainfall during the growing season cut output by nearly half in some regions. Beyond weather conditions, geopolitical and logistical challenges adding pressure to coffee prices, disruptions to shipping in the Red Sea, and potential US tariffs complicating the global coffee supply chain. The start of this new year also marks the start of a whole new era, an era where the babies born in the new year will be the first of a new peer group. What are they going to be referred as? Well, they will be called Generation Beta. They are successors to Generation Alpha, Gen Alpha. But that's really just one part of the story. Many in the generation will live to the 22nd century. Imagine that. Also, here's a question. What all will the Generation Beta bear witness to? A world driven by tech and advancement, groundbreaking scientific discoveries, medical breakthroughs, but also climate-related disasters and other challenges. Experts predict Generation Beta to be digitally fluent and highly adaptable individuals. No surprises there. What are the trends that can be expected? Generative AI is going to come through stronger, with many companies already scaling up the use into wide adoption. In fact, breakthroughs in drone technology also are expected, an area which has already seen giant leaps. But is there going to be a flip side to this? Experts suggesting even as global connectivity might encourage inclusivity, it might complicate personal interactions and even impact face-to-face problem solving and conflict management skills. Especially when Gen Beta babies will be born in a world where constant exposure to things will pretty much be the new normal, where people are conditioned to achieving instant gratification in a way. Generation Beta might face a unique set of challenges in areas like education, mental health. What this also means is addressing these challenges with innovations. More and more tech legislation and regulations might also be in place. Also, just think about living in an age where miracle cures for complex diseases could be on the horizon and could be a lived reality, no longer just a distant dream, which basically means that Generation Beta might be able to experience the very best of modern medicine in their lifetimes, such as a vaccine for cancer, as claimed by Russia, has already been dominating headlines. Also, will Generation Beta be more pandemic ready as compared to any of its previous generations, should another one strike? Similar trends have been spotted when it comes to rising life expectancy thanks to medical revolution and a rising bent for mindful living. In fact, reports suggesting many in the generation will live to the 22nd century, which basically means that Generation Beta could possibly have their middle ages as 75. Think about it. Researchers at the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, also known as KAIST, have unveiled a groundbreaking cancer treatment method. The innovative approach, instead of destroying the cells, reprograms the cancer cells into normal cells. In other words, they reverse the cancer cells into healthy ones, unlike traditional methods that destroy cancer cells through chemotherapy and radiation. Researchers achieved the feat by creating a digital twin model of the infected cell. A digital twin is a virtual replica of a physical object or process. Researchers conducted several experiments and animal trials before finalizing the new technology. Unlike traditional therapies where cancer patients experience severe side effects, including hair loss, appetite loss, fatigue, and in cases even the reappearance of cancer cells, this method gets to the root cause of cancer and focuses on the transformation process of the cell that turns normal cells into cancerous ones. As of now, researchers have successfully reversed colon cancer cells. They believe the same technology can be used for other cancers too. The team, in fact, is aiming to identify similar molecular switches for other kinds of tumors. While this is still at an experimental stage, but if successful, this approach could lead to therapies with significantly fewer side effects and a reduced cancer recurrence risk. Our next story is about time. The question is, can you reverse time? Scientists say possibly yes. Let's tell you what researchers at the University of Toronto have done. They've made a groundbreaking discovery. They have shown that negative time is not just a theoretical concept, but a tangible phenomenon. You see, scientists at the institution showed through an innovative quantum experiment that light appears to emerge from a material before entering. Physicists, in fact, conducting the research, their work focused on how light interacts with matter, particularly atomic excitation. In this process, photons energize atoms, causing electrons to jump to higher states. And when the electrons return, they emit energy, causing a light delay. Surprisingly, in their study, they found that this delay can appear reversed, hinting at negative time. This overturns several decades of prevailing ideas about the nature of time. While the term negative time might sound like a concept lifted from science fiction, scientists hope that it will spark deeper discussions about the mysteries of quantum physics. While much of the attention surrounding the results is international in scope, scientific communities have largely raised an eyebrow over the matter. But just to be clear, the results are yet to be published in a peer-reviewed journal. These results are expected to spur further investigation into the mysteries of time as well as quantum mechanics. According to a report by Scientific American, the idea for this work emerged in 2017. At the time, a physicist at the University of Toronto and his lab colleague were interested in the interaction of light and matter, specifically a phenomenon called atomic excitation. It means that when photons pass through a medium and get absorbed, electrons swirling around atoms in that medium jump to higher energy levels. And when these excited electrons lapse to their original state, they release that absorbed energy as re-emitted photons, introducing a time delay in the light's observed transit time through the medium. So does that mean that time travel might be possible? Though there are skeptics, of course, who knows, maybe this could become a possibility as well. Imagine sitting at home when a massive piece of metal falls from the sky and crashes nearby. Sounds like a sci-fi thriller, perhaps. Well, something similar happened with the residents of a village in Kenya. According to Kenya Space Agency, or KSA, on December 30th, fragments of metal, which are believed to be from a rocket, crashed into Mukuku village in Kenya's county at around 3 p.m. local time. The gigantic metallic fragment, roughly 8 feet in diameter and weighing nearly 500 kgs, is now being investigated to determine if this is a case of space debris. Reportedly, the space agency, working alongside the local authorities, secured the area and retrieved the debris for further analysis. As of the last update, there had been no report of any casualties. But how exactly did the debris form and even land on Earth?
So indeed, we can confirm we've located the item. The area locals should not be scared. It is a part of a space object, which is in form of a ring, a metallic ring, possibly from a rocket separation stage. We are to assess the impact to the area, identify whose space object it is, so that we can use the existing legal mechanisms under international law as far as the Outer Space Treaty is concerned.
According to the agency, preliminary assessments indicating that the fallen object is a separation ring from a launch vehicle. Reports suggest the separation ring is a part of a spacecraft, and since rockets typically come in stages, each part drops away when it has fulfilled its role in the launch of the vehicle. But how dangerous is it really? Well, reportedly, as per the KSA, the object poses no immediate threat to safety. But this is not an isolated incident per se. You see, in the last few years, the menace of space debris has started to affect people on Earth. Only last year, NASA was slapped with a lawsuit by an American family when a piece of falling metal pierced their Florida home. Not just that, in February 2024, the European Space Agency stated that a satellite weighing as much as an adult male rhinoceros crashed and re-entered the Earth's atmosphere over the North Pacific Ocean between Alaska and Hawaii. Where does all of this stem from? Only last month, media reports claimed that the accumulation of space debris had raised the real possibility of a collision cascading effect. This is called the Kessler syndrome. What exactly is that syndrome? Apparently, it is a hypothetical scenario proposed by NASA scientist Donald J. Kessler in 1978, which predicts that when the density of objects in low Earth orbit, roughly 100 to 1200 miles above our planet, reaches a certain critical level, it could lead to a chain reaction of collisions, which could render the orbit unfit for human use and halt the space age. But are space events such as space debris going to be the new normal? Scientists reportedly dread that could be the case given the exponential rise in number of objects in the space in the last 4 years. A brand new year has started and 2025 seems to be a treat for stargazers. The night sky will come alive with fascinating celestial events that you may not want to miss. Let's now get you the highlights of what could be in store. The Quadrant-Tide meteor shower